Well, good morning, Jonathan.
Yeah,
From
good morning.
steamy hot New York City here in June. It's a shocker for us. I think we hit 100 degrees yesterday. There's nowhere to hide. There's no one to hide from the wrath of the sun.
Yeah,
Oh man, good to be
we
here
had
though.
we had it here first, and I told my church on Sunday that it's good to remember that one of the graces of Jesus is that in the new creation there will be no scorching heat. So we can remember that during this time of year.
Yeah, yeah. Oh, for sure, for sure. Yeah. Sometimes you don't kind of pick up on some of those biblical promises, but then when you read them on a 100-degree day, they start to mean a little bit more. So
Yes, they do.
this is anyway, this is the Notable podcast. Not because it's notable, it probably really isn't at all, but we are making notes in our Bibles, and you're just listening to two twin pastors who we love the adventure and the mystery of God's word and these stories. And we've been working a little bit at a time through these precious chapters in Genesis. This is our 10th season. If you're liking the podcast, give us a review. It's always really encouraging. You can now comment on Spotify or on Apple Podcasts. We love that, and we'll answer your questions. And if you'd like to give a kind donation, that's really encouraging too, and it allows us to buy the books that we need for this podcast and host the website and do the things. It's not free to us to do that. So thank you for that encouragement. Jonathan, Genesis chapter 33 today. Genesis chapter 33. This is a
Yeah,
whopper of a story.
yeah, we're starting to come around full circle. We had the disruption, the irreconciliation of Jacob and Esau. We talked about why. Um, so Jacob sure has responsibility to carry for that. And uh, well, I don't want to spoil this one.
Yeah, yeah. I mean,
Jacob, 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 Jacob. Oh, Jacob.
this is one of the most powerful, I would say, and emotive scenes in the whole Bible. And I actually truly believe that Jesus bases one of his most emotive and powerful parables on on this very story. Like Jesus
Yeah,
lived in
lots of
this,
people think that.
yeah, Jesus lived in this story, this beautiful moment of reconciliation. But Jonathan, I wanted to start into it like this. I recently read a theological journal article, and it made this claim. I'm going to read you the quote. The author said, "Finding the point or points of essential continuity is how we interpreters of scriptures earn our keep." Now I want to translate that. What the scholar was saying is that it's very difficult to draw a straight line from the biblical circumstances and biblical text to our own times. And therefore, one of the pastor's greatest struggles is to take ancient texts in their own context and then redirect them into the lives of modern day listeners. He's saying that's really difficult to do. And I suppose that sometimes that's true. But I think I stole this from you. Really, what we see in the story is a very thin door that connects
That's
our
interesting.
times to theirs.
Yeah, it's really interesting that you went at it like that, Timothy. That because I, I was sitting. I actually went to chapel at a local high school, Minnesota Valley Lutheran High School, and I was blessed to hear uh, a preacher deliver the chapel, and I got to hear it in person. That was a special blessing to me. No, normally, I'm the one preaching. I don't get to receive preaching. And so I was really thankful to just to sit there and receive that. but the preacher who was preaching, he was actually preaching on Genesis like I was going to be doing that week. And he made an opening comment about Genesis, and his opening comment, and I'm just going to paraphrase it. What he said to the students and to the faculty there, and I just happened to be there. He said, and I'm paraphrasing again, but it was something like, "It can seem like these ancient people in their lives are so far away." And so he was saying what the journal article was saying, and I guess a more pastoral way, like, "Hey, everybody, I get why this can kind of feel far off." What was interesting about that comment is the way that it landed, because I was for me, because I was preaching on Genesis, and I was actually going to be preaching on Genesis chapter 33. And the reality is, like, it didn't Genesis to me, because I was dealing with Genesis chapter 33, and he was dealing with a different chapter of Genesis in his defense, is that it didn't feel far away at all. I kept, when I was dealing with Genesis chapter 33, I thought to myself, this feels like absolutely what I see in people's lives every single day. You can draw, it's a thin door. I can draw a straight line. In fact, here we're going to be talking about relationships, right? Human relationships, relationships in families, irreconciliation, estrangement, alienation in families. I'll tell you this, Timothy. I read a piece. It was by a pundit. This was back at the end of 2024, but the pundit was talking about two of the major storylines that developed in at least in our culture in the U.S. in 2024. And this pundit talked about two of the storylines that to her were the saddest ones. And one of those storylines was, in fact, alienation in families. So irreconciliation in families. And the storyline was that children are doing what is called no contact, um, with their parents, which is really, it's just when they say no contact in the culture, at least in 2024, that's really just a euphemism for being estranged from your parents. It's really what it is. Just, I don't want to deal with my parents. I'm not going to deal with my parents. And so, um, wow, here we have this. It happened in Jacob's family and Esau's family. It's happening in our families. Strained family relationships. Whoa. Check, 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 check. We got that going on.
Well, yeah, and I wonder why people feel so distant from biblical texts, because the more that I do this work, the more that I work with the Holy Scriptures, and the more that I work with real people with real lives, what I find is actually exactly the opposite. And I don't want to be too critical, but I wonder if sometimes scholars sit in their ivory towers for too long and they're not working with real people. And so, like, when you take a chapter like Genesis chapter 33, where, and by the way, we're not going to read it because we're going to just take Genesis chapter 33, 1 to 17. And so if you're listening in, you're going to have to read it on your own. It's too long to read here, but pull out your Bibles, read it, or listen to it on your Bible app before you take in this podcast. But I'll just say this: like, as you read it and you see Jacob and Esau and this massive God worked family reunion, um, and reconciliation, you realize that the points of continuity between these ancient texts and modern life, they leap out in front of you like a moose in front of a truck. It's like you're just,
Like that.
I mean, it's a moose.
What did you just turn Minnesota, Minnesotan for a
No,
second, or
that's a
what?
no, that's a Vermont thing. Like, it's a Vermont. I was up in Vermont not that long ago, and I saw these big sign that says "Beware of moose." And I was so taken back from it. I was like, I don't think I'll miss it. I don't need the sign. I will see the moose if I'm about to. So, and I really think, like, when you read these biblical texts, you're like, yeah, this is a moose. This one's a moose. Um, really, really people, really people use therapeutic language. They'll talk about dysfunctional families. I don't know if you hear that in Minnesota, but New York,
all the time.
everyone. My family's dysfunctional. Everybody's family's is dysfunctional. My family's dysfunctional too. Like it's an amazing thing. And here you have a dysfunctional family. That's what
Yeah.
this is. And the dynamics are that um this is a thin door. This is the points of continuity are right there to reach for 'em.
Yeah,
I
my take, Timothy, is that actually there is so much continuity. The issue is not trying to connect people to it. Uh, the difficulty of connecting people to it emotionally. The difficulty is actually that it's so emotional that people won't want to walk through the door. The door is right there, but then to come up, Jacob was struggling with this. We struggle with this, walking through the door of a pained, hurt relationship. That's hard to do, to come face to face with it.
Yeah. I read this stat that 11% of mothers and adult never hear from their adult children. So this isn't a marginal thing in culture where you have these strained familial relationships. But maybe, Jonathan, we should get into it. Like, just start to tell the story a little bit. What do you think?
Yeah, yeah.
So,
Go ahead. You're
no,
ready.
okay. I am ready. I'm ready. So this is so like this is the way the story goes where and remember, like, let's just kind of grab the context. Remember, Jacob had just been across the river Jabbok and he'd wrestled with this ambiguous man that later he's unwilling to give himself a name, but we know who he is. It was Jesus. And he wrestles the blessing out of Jesus. And this then is Jacob, who's now renamed Israel. He crosses over the river, and now he's ready to meet his brother Esau. And so the story goes like this, is that he knows Esau's coming with the 400 men. We've talked about that before. And so he divides up his family into um, three different parts. And he himself goes on ahead to meet his brother. As first his concubines go, and then Leah and her children go, and then finally Rachel and her one child Joseph. So everything's kind of, they're divided. Um, one part of his family first, second part of his family, third part of his family, and Jacob goes then limping from the rear all the way to the front. Certainly a manly thing to do, that he would go first. And then what we're told is,
Yeah, I like it. Good for him. Can we we're gonna have to critique him here, but
we will,
I
yeah, yeah,
I want
like
to
the division.
take a moment. We have to critique him later on that, but at least for now, just so people can't accuse us of being biased or something like that. This is manly and sacrificial and good and right. He is leading his family, and he's willing to lay his life down for them if that's necessary. Good for him, good for him. He's going to go first. He doesn't know what's going to happen.
And something did change about him where, the night before he had retreated and gone behind his family, and depending on how you think about that, and now he is going to go out in front of his family. And then I think it's really important to think about the actions that Jacob carries out as his brother comes near to him. And what we're told in the story is that he bowed down not once but twice, and then he keeps bowing down actually for a grand total. I mean, you have to think about this, 7 times. Yeah, I mean, he
He's bowing down
really,
on the ground. He's acting like a servant, and Esau's his king. That's really what's happening here. This is very formal uh, action on his part, and that's important,
Yeah,
especially by way of contrast.
yeah, exactly. You gotta pay attention to how this all happens because then um Esau, you have to contrast these two twin brothers. Esau, apparently, what we learn right away is that Esau's heart had changed, and and he in contrast advances towards Jacob very rapidly, and we're told that he
Iran.
ran. He just starts running, like, forget about all this bowing stuff, and he sets aside decorum. He doesn't put on a show. He literally picks up his garments and he starts to run to Jacob, and he picks Jacob off the ground, apparently because Jacob's just doing this whole, like, he's kissing dust, and he wraps his arms around his brother, and he fully embraces him in every sense that he fully embraces them. And as a side note, and this is so interesting, hugs are really powerful things. And this really is a side note, but if you want to reconcile with someone, it's hard to guard anger in your heart. Um, if you fully embrace a person and give them, like, not one of those side hugs, but like a real hug, just try it. Here in New York City, sometimes people will offer hugs just to peer strangers, like on the street, and people, it change. It really, I don't know if it's a vibe thing. It's something about how God made it. So this is really a side thing. But hugs are powerful things. I think people should try it. If,
Well,
if you have,
draw the contrast, like, and you've already done that. Esau, he's so human here, Timothy. He's running at his brother. He's throwing his arms around his neck, we're told. This is the hug. And there's great intimacy in that, and there's great vulnerability in that. And you helped us think
he's
about that.
kissing him.
He
He's
kisses
kissing him.
him. He kisses him. Yeah. And it would seem that then and only then in the scene, because this is cinematic, we're invited to see the scene. It would seem that then and only then Jacob actually felt safe to join in this reunion. And we're told that to this point, it would very much seem that Jacob is highly structured. There's probably some fear that led to some apparent coldness. He's treating his brother like a king, not like a brother, actually. But Esau is so warm, so loving, um, so human here. That's what I keep thinking, like that. Uh, all of a sudden, what we see is both brothers break down and they weep together. And that's the opening scene of this story, of this reunion here, this reconciliation. So beautiful, so human. You can read in the context of Jacob's greater story. What we're actually seeing in this moment is decades. I mean, think about this. This is decades of horrible estrangement, wounds that went so deep into both brothers' hearts have fallen to the ground in a pool of tears. It is, when you say that this is one of the most, I forget how you said it, one of the most beautiful scenes in the Bible. There it is. And I agree with you. I think Esau here becomes the model for the father and the prodigal son. Like, where did Jesus get this running father and the arms and the kissing? And where did Jesus get all that stuff? Well, it sure looks like Esau.
I think it's worth reading. This is the key verse here. This is verse 4. It says, "But Esau," so even the biblical author contrasts Jacob's behavior with Esau's behavior. So it says, "But Esau ran to meet Jacob and embraced him. He threw his arms around his neck and kissed him, and they wept." This is what this is what every broken family yearns for. That that all the old wounds would melt away in tears. I mean, they wept for everything that they had lost all those long years. They wept for everything that they had done to each other and for each other. They wept for joy. They wept for the 20 years. And for a brief moment in their lives, for a very brief moment, the only thing that mattered is that they were brothers.
Twins.
And it was an amazing thing. They were actually totally, fully reconciled in that moment. So beautiful.
Yeah, the thing, it's hard. Like you kind of want to stay in that, just enjoy it, be totally won by it. Where unfortunately, I blame Jacob for this. I really do. Unfortunately, Jacob jerks you out of it really quickly because he had his formal plan enacted. And so what you have this moment and you want to just enjoy it, you want to stay in it, you want to say amen, that's it. But what ends up happening is that we recall that Jacob had put his family in order and they start walking up in the way that we've already described. And uh, it's important for us to think that through just a little bit because it's going to help us get to what actually caused this reconciliation. Because what we want to say is it wasn't because Jacob did such a great job reconciling, because he didn't. In fact, what you see happening in the scene, Jacob's weeping with his brother, and then his family's coming behind, is that we see here, and I don't even want to talk about this. This is very painful to me. But we see here Jacob um, sowing the seeds of irreconciliation in his own family at the same time that he's reconciling to his brothers. And this is what I want to point out. And Lord willing, we'll get to do the Joseph story. But what we see here is that this is actually a seed that is planted with Joseph and his brothers. And anybody who has read the rest of Genesis knows that this is a seed that plant that takes Timothy. It sprouts later in Genesis, so that the the favoritism that Jacob is very obviously showing in his family sprouts into irreconciliation among his sons. So at the same time he is reconciled to his brothers, his sons who are brothers, um, he harms their relationship because of his actions here. And that's not beside the point. That is kind of the point here, because Jacob did not, what I'm saying is Jacob didn't have a perfect attempt at reconciliation here. There's some things we can appraise, but we actually have to very much critique this. And this was, I say that because I want all of us to realize this is not Jacob's work here. This is God's. And you said it. Esau's heart was changed. Why? Because Jacob bowed enough? No. The Proverbs say, in the Lord's hand, the king's heart is a stream of water that he channels toward all who please him. The Lord did this. God changed Esau's heart. God changed it into something so beautiful that I think we have every right to at least compare it to the father and the prodigal son. At least compare it, if not go with the suggestion that lots of people have besides this, that boy, Jesus might have modeled the story of the prodigal son on Esau. At any rate, both of these guys end up melted because of God, because of the Lord and his goodness, giving this as a gift to those men.
Well, you're exactly right. Like, if we could put it in a modern day terms, I can tell you what didn't cause this moment. What didn't cause it is years and years of therapy and talking about all the hurts and the harms and the hangups and all of that didn't do it. And it didn't happen because of Jacob's attempt at bribery or because of the arrangement of his family or because he was bowing down really well to his brother Esau. That didn't do it. It didn't happen because of long intermediate intermediaries having these long conversations to make it happen. It didn't happen because, and this is a really important point, because of a full apology. I hear that all the time, like, oh, if I'm only gonna if they fully apologize, that didn't do it. That didn't happen
No,
before this moment. None of that stuff happened. It didn't happen because of time. If you think that time heals all wounds, you're wrong. The old grudges can last for years, if not decades and longer. Like 20 years had gone by. That didn't do it. So like what was it, that caused this incredible reconciliation to happen? The only answer that meets the moment is that God had worked in Esau's heart. God had worked it in Esau's heart, and the murderous hate that had been there was replaced with um, this heart full of forgiveness and joy and love for his little brother Jacob. And so there they are weeping, all because of God's power and God's answer to Jacob's prayer and blessing that he wrestled out of Jesus. This is a moment. This is an incredible moment, and God gets all the credit for it.
and this is. I only want to make one brief comment before moving on. My brief comment is that this is hope for for you and I, Timothy, for the damaged relationships in our life, but it's hope for our listeners too. Actually, one of the steps in AA is that you make a list of the people you have wronged, and you reflect on that. And there's that can be a good discipline to actually think about, where are the relationships in my life that are damaged, that are strained. Sometimes there's a full-blown rupture in a relationship. It's easy to identify it. Other times there's maybe long hurts that haven't been addressed, irritations in marriage, where maybe people are married and they're basically just glorified roommates or something like that. And this is a chance to say, uh, hopefully, with the Lord, like He he put this story in the Bible so we see that things can be healed. So we see that He does care about human reconciliation. He cares about our relationships very, very much. And He wants to give as a gift to us these precious, precious moments. And He can do it. He can really, really do it. Now, Timothy, you can nuance this more than I will. I do. I think it's important for our listeners to also understand that is all. Sometimes it is not possible or wise to be reconciled. Sometimes it's not possible or wise, and we're going to talk about that a whole lot more when we talk about the Dinah story, which is actually coming up next. So stay tuned. Sometimes it's not possible or wise. And I deal with that in pastoral counseling sometimes, to help people understand there's a difference between forgiveness and reconciliation. You can forgive somebody, but not go back into a relationship with them. And sometimes it has to be that way because for some reason it's either dangerous or impossible to have a trusted relationship with that person. And so we need to say, I'm saying that out loud, but I want to stay mostly on in this story where uh, here, here, God is giving us so much hope. There's always 99 reasons why uh, I shouldn't try to talk to that person again, or I should just let sleeping dogs lie. It's better like that. We just end up fighting again or something like that. Here's hope. God can and does make beautiful reconciliations happen. The Lord can do it.
Well, there's a person in my life who always puts it this way, Jonathan. I got two things to kind of wrap up this section on hope for this new world. Like we're really entering a new world where reconciliation is possible. Um, I always say this to people when they come to me for pastoral care. I say to them, it sounds like you have very good reasons to end this relationship. And they always do. Like everyone always does have very good reasons to end the relationship. But then I always say, you also have better reasons to seek reconciliation. And the better reason, it's one thing to see Jacob and Esau's reconciliation, and it's beautiful and it's hopeful and it's a new world of reconciliation. But here's the thing, like this is what gives us the most hope. And this is what Jesus was driving at in what some people have called the parable of the prodigal son, is that if God can reconcile himself to wicked, dirty, rotten, evil, hateful people through his son and run towards them and embrace them and welcome them, then isn't it possible for us to do the same with lesser offenses? Isn't it possible? And I think that's why we can always say, like, you have good reasons to end the relationship. You have better ones to seek this new and possible world of reconciliation. This is always nuanced. This is always nuanced with what you said, Jonathan. Abuse is a whole separate issue. And um, you know, when you're legitimately feeling unsafe, it's a whole different issue, which we're going to address next time in a separate podcast. So we'll like you what, and I think that the biblical author is it's magnificent because you have to hold this story right next to the Dinah story where she is sexually assaulted. And so you have to hold this story of reconciliation right next to the story of now what happens in Dinah's world with the person, the man who sexually assaulted her. Totally different circumstances. God has different words for both.
Yeah, and so I mentioned this before, but I wish that this moment had lasted forever, that we could just stay in this beautiful scene of reconciliation. But like I said before, Jacob's very calculated plan kept unfolding, and what we're given sight into is the discourse that then happens. So that there's this conversation that needs a little bit of analysis. So what happens is the women and the children parade up and bow down to Esau in their proper order, the order that Jacob had designed. And Esau says, "Who are these?" And I'll be honest, Timothy, I I I wish that Jacob would have responded differently. I wish that he had unthawed. I still remember how exciting it was when my kids got to meet you for the first time. And Jude and Asher, because we're identical twins, they're fraternal, but Jude and Asher are like, and who's my dad? Like, what is happening here? There's somebody who looks just like my dad. And then, so I was so proud of my sons, like, hey, meet your uncle. And I wish that Jacob would have done that. I wish he would have stayed melted in the moment. Said, Uncle Esau, look at your nephews. You know, he's very formal. He's very buttoned down. He's still acting like a servant to his Lord. And he says very formally, they are the children God has graciously given your servant. And that's what he says. And then you have the flocks and the herds. And remember, we mentioned that in a past podcast, but the flocks and herds come up, and Esau says, "What's the meaning of these flocks and herds?" And Jacob is still, he's so formal. He's very emotionally distant in this moment. He says, to find favor in your eyes, my Lord. And Esau, so Jacob's acting like this very formal, um, in a way, emotionally distanced character. And Esau is the very opposite. He's very human. He's very brotherly. He's very close. And it's almost like Esau is trying to push past the formality, um, and just be a brother. So he says, "I already have plenty, my brother." Like he sounds like a brother. I have plenty, my brother. Keep what you have for yourself. And Jacob says, "No, please. Seeing your face is like seeing the face of God. God has been gracious to me, and all I need, and I have all I need." And so Jacob is obviously very concerned, that he wants to be on good terms with his brother Esau. And Jacob is making it clear that he actually needs Esau to accept his gift. He needs Esau to affirm that they're okay. And he's saying, take the gift, accept the gift. And in the end, what happens is you have this beautiful moment. You keep the wealth, Jacob. No, you keep the wealth, Esau. And neither of them actually wanted the wealth. um, in the end, what you see is they both wanted a relationship with each other. And I got more to say, Timothy, but I want to pause and let you in.
Well, one this is just pastoral experience is when families get divided, it is often indicative of the fact that this isn't always, but it's indicative of the fact that they have prioritized stuff and things over the relationship with their family. And I don't know how many situations, honestly, a lot of times it comes down to money. They one part of the family feels like they got screwed, just to put it super bluntly, and so they end the relationship, um, because what they really want and what they make clear is that they would prefer the person's money than the person. And
Mhm.
to be honest, that's super ugly. It's ugly.
Well, look at this. Look at this thing here. This is a scene of reconciliation. Do some analysis. You got us right into it, like the very human side of this. Look at this. Esau comes in, and this is remarkable. You could do a whole sermon on this. Just on these ideas that we're talking about right now. Whole sermon. At any rate, Esau comes in, and this is a quote. He says, "I have plenty." Now, okay, think about that. That's an amazing statement from Esau. That's a remarkable statement from Esau. He says, "I have plenty." Look. I'm just gonna say this, and this is some law, but I think it's worthy law here. I would suggest that there are a lot of people who have a hard time admitting much less. Like there's a lot of people who would have a hard time admitting I have enough. Like if you ask people, do you have enough? They would say, no, I don't have enough. I need more money. I need more of this. I need more of that. Um, Esau's way past that. Esau's he's way past the bar of I have enough. What he says is, I got plenty. Like that is a remarkable, uh, pause on that. How many people actually feel like I have plenteousness? I have abundance. I like, whoa, I don't need more. Like, who says
Well,
that?
I mean,
Esau said it.
there's discourses, there's modern discourses around around this very issue where people talk about a scarcity mindset, I think,
Yeah,
and the ugliness that comes out of that mindset. Like you and I were talking about a situation recently, right, Jonathan, where it's
yeah,
just
we did.
out of this mindset. I don't have plenty. I I need what I have. I definitely
I
can't share it
can't
with
share with
you.
anybody else. Yep.
It and so what happens is people people really hold on tight to what they have because they don't feel like they have enough. And sometimes they do it in a way that is, I don't know, like not kind. People get, people lose their kindness and their warmth because they're thinking, I got to hold on to what I have. I don't have enough, and I definitely don't have plenty. Esau is working from a different
Give
spiritual
give
place. Like,
give Esau some credit, right? Like he this God had given him this sense because a lot of people have plenty, but they don't sense that they have plenty. God had given him this sense like, I have so much. What a gift. But now here's Jacob. We're analyzing this discourse a little bit. So Jacob says right back to him, and I'm going to give you a quote from the Hebrew. I know that the English is translated a little bit differently, but I think it was Martin Luther who pointed out the importance of this. To me, when I wrote his commentary on this. But Jacob actually says in the Hebrew, I have everything. That's what he said. So Esau says, I got plenty. And Jacob comes back and says, no, 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 no. I have everything. Like, okay. So I, I have everything. Now, I want to pause and think about that. I actually don't think that that's hyperbole from a Christian perspective. I think only a Christian can actually, a Christ follower can say, I have everything. I have God. Because he did. And we do. I have God. I have Jesus. I have eternity. I have the forgiveness of my sins. I have all of the new creation is and will be mine. I see Esau. I have you got plenty. I got everything. And so this is a beautiful. I read this as a beautiful statement. This isn't just negotiating a relationship here. I actually read that with Christ and Jacob's heart. That you, at any rate, both of these men are satisfied in their hearts with what God has given them, like more than satisfied. And the importance of this to reconciliation is that both because both of these guys knew that God had given them everything that they need and more. What they did not go into this relationship looking for anything except each other. And I think that that is
mm,
really, really important for reconciliation. So look, um, there's a lot you can learn here about relationships, and I think it'd be valid to do an analysis of this text and like how do you do reconciliation? Teach me the lessons, God. Teach me the lessons from Genesis chapter 33. Okay, one of the lessons that you learn here is humility is important, right? I think Jacob shows us humility. You don't go in there hot blaming the other person. Esau didn't, Jacob didn't either. Humility, um, not pointing fingers is important. Esau, how about another lesson? Forgiveness. You cannot have a relationship without the very basis of forgiveness. Forgiveness is everything in a relationship. Here's Esau, he just lets it go. I think this is amazing. Like Esau didn't bring anything back around Timothy. Like, we're not going to be on good terms until you apologize to me for deceiving dad. He doesn't do that. He let it go. You can't, how can you ever have a relationship with somebody? You just let it go. You forgive it in Christ. And so these are important things. I think 4% wrong in a relationship is still 4% wrong, even if the other person is 96% wrong. We apologize for what we were wrong for in the relationship. And if reconciliation is going to happen, forgiveness has to be the heart of the matter. Okay, good enough, right? Here's some lessons on reconciliation. But here's a spiritual key. Going into and you said it before, going into a relationship knowing that you have everything, absolutely everything is key. Because then you can go into the relationship not looking to get something from somebody else. Instead, what you go into the relationship wanting is them. You actually just want the other person.
and that's the only thing that you're lacking is the person.
Yeah.
And So yeah, you're right. That's so it's so beautiful here. It's so beautiful here. And yet at the same time, I think we can also say that Jacob Jacob is you could say that Esau does everything right here. He A lot of people are so hard on Esau, but here in this key moment in the brothers' relationship, he gets all thumbs up. But consistently along the line, Jacob is he's performing like what I would say is the verbal and behavioral equivalent to an NFL running back stiff arm. He is keeping his brother at a distance. And he's, like you said before, he's sowing seeds of irreconciliation. Like it pains me to see him prioritize and rank his boys and his wives. He prioritizes and ranks them. And right there, it's divisive. It's absolutely divisive. Like next podcast when we talk about Dinah, who is it that rises up in defense of their sister? It's the people who had the same. It's the people who had the same mom. And so this is something that we're going to we're going to need to take a look at.